Hi, today's immunity boosting food we're talking about is probiotic foods. Our intestines are full of bacteria, which we call the microbiome. And these bacteria and different things in our gut help digest fiber and different items to produce vitamins, especially K and the B vitamins, and also produce short chain fatty acids, which fuel the gut lining and reduce inflammation. So, probiotics are foods that contain bacteria that help reinforce the good bacteria in our gut, especially after we take antibiotics or if we have stomach flu, which causes us to have stomach issues. One thing about eating these probiotic foods, a little goes a long way. Uh, More is not always better because if you eat too much at once, and especially if you're not used to it, you'll get gaseous and can cause stomach cramping. So some of the common products that we can find in the supermarket are yogurt, especially when you look for something that says contains live active cultures. Another one is artisanal sauerkraut or kraut that's not been sterilized in the jar. This is from the refrigerator, and it's lacto-fermented, meaning it uses lactobacillus bacteria that naturally ferments the cabbage and sours it. And another common one is kimchi. And kimchi, there are many types, but kimchi is sort of like this uses regular cabbage and kimchi uses Napa cabbage. And traditional kimchi would contain fish sauce, and some use rice porridge or rice flour slurry to mix it together, so that's high carb. So today's recipe, I'm going to do my own kimchi where I get to control what I put into my food. And also, this size jar is pretty expensive. It was about $7 to $8, and I figure I could make more for less. Hi, today's simple recipe is making your own kimchi at home. Like all the other probiotic foods, yogurt is easy to make, and so is sauerkraut. This is going to be one of the many probiotic food videos I'm going to be making. But today is kimchi. I bought a relatively small head of kimchi, Napa cabbage to make kimchi. Sometimes I don't know how much I really eat, so I just want to start small and just make it. So cut off the stem end, and then we're going to cut this into smaller bite-sized pieces. And I'm just slitting the core right now, and then I'll peel it off, peel it apart, and then I'm going to cut into roughly 1-2 inch strips, bite-sized pieces. And this gives me a chance to look at it. So it's starting to flower in the center, and I usually don't like doing the flowers. But from here, we'll just take out the core. And then cut into bite-sized chunks. All right, now that I've cut the Napa cabbage into little bite-sized pieces, the next step is to just give it a quick rinse to wet the leaves. And now we'll salt. Okay, with the Napa cabbage leaves wetted, it helps dissolve the salt. So I have 3 tablespoons of salt that I'll work into the leaves. The idea behind salting is to start the fermentation process. There are some bacteria naturally occurring in the leaves, and the salt promotes the growth of the good bacteria while eliminating any of the bad bacteria that can't handle the salt. You can't handle the salt. And don't worry if you use too much, because what we're going to do is just let this mixture sit for 2 hours, and we'll rotate the leaves every half hour. So, and then we'll rinse afterwards. So it looks like I used about 2 tablespoons of salt. I'll just add a little more for insurance. And then I'll put a plate over this and weigh it down to help compress everything. I'll come back in a half hour, start flipping the leaves to make sure it all gets redistributed evenly, it being the salt. All right, while the Napa cabbage is salting, I'm going to make the sort of the paste or the base for the kimchi. I have garlic, 1 teaspoon, a quarter of a white onion, and a quarter size piece of ginger. And this I'm going to throw into my food chopper, add a couple tablespoons of chili powder, and I made a 3% solution of salt water, basically 230 grams of water and 6 grams of salt, 6 or 7, doesn't matter. And that makes a 3%, roughly a 3% solution. I'm used probably a tablespoon to get the mixture liquidy. Then I have 3 green onions I'll cut into 1-inch slices and throw that into the finished kimchi and mix it all together. In terms of chili powders, I didn't know to use coarse or fine. I use coarse. I kind of like the looks of it. It's fine, I would think would be too fine, and this actually would give some texture. So I threw all the ingredients plus 2 tablespoons of the 3% salt solution, and I will mix this together. Fun with the food chopper. All right, I'll scrape it down. Just out of curiosity, I'll give this paste a little try. Has a little kick. I'll add a little more red pepper flakes and maybe a little more of the brine just to make it a little more liquidy, but it's pretty good. All right, it's been 30 minutes. I'm going to give this a quick mix. There's a lot of water on the bottom. I don't know if you could see this. So I'm just redistributing the mixture. Make sure the cabbage on top gets some time in the salt water. It's slowly getting limp, but so far another hour and a half of soaking to go. For the green onions, I've washed and cut off the roots and the gnarly parts of the green onion. So usually what I do with green onions is like to split it in half and then cut into sort of 1-inch strips on the diagonal. Right, in order not to get another container dirty, I'm just going to take out the blade and wash it. I don't want this to stain. And I'll put the green onions and just mix it in here and wait for the salted cabbage to be ready. All right, here are the results after 2 hours of soaking. I've turned the Napa cabbage every half hour. So you see this is shrunk quite a bit and there's quite a bit of water left. So the next step is to rinse in cold water the Napa cabbage and drain. Basically, we're washing off the excess salt. All right, the cabbage has been soaking for 2 hours in a salty solution. I'm gonna just pull the cabbage out and drain this water and rinse out this bowl to get rid of a lot of the salt. But look at how much water came out of the cabbage. Now we're gonna rinse the cabbage in cold water. Three or four times. Try to get rid of the extra salt. Okay, now I'll just let it drain, but curious, let's see how it tastes. There's definitely residual salt in the cabbage itself, so probably through a process of osmosis, the salt has soaked into the cabbage. All right, here's the cabbage that's been drained, and I gave it a light squeeze to get rid of any extra moisture. Here's the paste that I made and refrigerated a little bit since I made it early. Now the objective is to mix everything together. I used a 3% salt solution. If I had thought I had fish sauce, I would have used fish sauce instead. But now you just mix everything together, make sure all the leaves are coated with the mixture, the chili paste mixture. All right, I don't have a glass or a container that's ready to take this, so what I'm going to use is a Ziploc bag and allow it to ferment in the bag. This is a freezer bag, so it's heavier gauge than a storage bag. So I'm going to press out the air and seal it and leave it on the counter overnight and hope it starts fermenting. It looks a little dry. I might add some more of the solution. All right, here's the kimchi in the Ziploc, and I put it in a glass container just in case the Ziploc leaks. And I ended up putting the rest of that salt water solution into it just to have more liquid. And every once in a while I'll just flip it to make sure both sides are covered with the solution so it hopefully ferments evenly. And I put it in the oven, just a nice dark place out of the way. All right, it's the next morning. The kimchi's been in this bag in a bowl for overnight. And I'm gonna give it a quick check. Basically, I wanted to kickstart the fermentation process at room temperature, and then I'm gonna just put it in the fridge and slow it down. I could see little bubbles, but it's kind of slow, and I don't need to really go fast. And what I'm doing now is I got a plastic container, and I'm going to use that as my storage. One thing at the Korean market that they did with the kimchi is they wrapped it in a plastic bag once I bought it. I think that's because this stuff will start bubbling up, and you don't want it to overflow in the fridge, so the paper bag will capture. I'll give it a quick taste, see how it tastes. Has a little spiciness, faintly sour. I think it just needs more time to ferment. So with kimchi made, I plan to do more videos on what to do with the kimchi, different recipes. So stay tuned. Hope to see you guys later. With the kimchi in the container, you just want to press it down to make sure the liquid is above the level, or at least near the level of the kimchi. So it's kind of covered.